We're going deep into the lore today, boys and girls, so hold on tight. My overall impression of the show hasn't changed much since last week. If anything, it's only intensified. The kind of mystery thriller angle that they're going with is still there, giving us more clues as to what exactly is happening. We'll get more into that later. They continue with the same theme or shtick or gimmick, whatever you call it, as far as like making each episode centered around a certain style or time frame, right, of sitcoms, right? With the first two episodes being based on sitcoms from the 50s and 60s. This one seems to be centered more around the 70s. We even got another custom opening to the episode, personalized opening. This time, I believe it's referencing Brady Bunch. I might be wrong on that one. If you happen to know exactly which show that's riffing off of, please go ahead, leave it in the comments. I'd love to know that. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe to the video as well. I swear, if this show walks away with anything, it has to be something in regards to like the set design and the costumes and wardrobe. Man, the people that were in charge of that are doing an outstanding job. The fact that like the setting is completely changing from episode to episode, and you're just like picking up on these little changes that they're making. I swear, for some parts of the episode, I'm just like, I'm not even looking at the people or like paying attention really to what they're saying. I'm just like looking in the background and just trying to see like what's going on or what I can pick up on. It makes it a lot of fun to watch, man. And I gotta say, Elizabeth Olsen is absolutely killing it, and I mean killing it, man. The way she can just in the blink of an eye just like make that switch from happy-go-lucky, funny, charming sitcom wife, to even, you can say, like menacing, like just it's amazing. It's amazing to watch, and she's so good. I love it. So the main focus of this episode was centered all around the birth of the twins, right? It took a lot less time than most people would expect, but hey, when we're talking about an alternate reality, why can't babies be born in 2 to 3 days? Sure. But of course, just like the last couple of episodes, it didn't go without its weird moments or little cracks in reality, as I like to call them. I want to break it down to 2 key moments in which kind of things got a little weird, right? First, a conversation between Vision and, I guess actually he was jumping into a conversation that was being had by their neighbors, right? Agnes and Herb. Yeah, there you go. That's the name. So yeah, he sees them kind of like chitter-chattering there at the on the fence, and he gets suspicious, curious, and walks over to ask what they're talking about. But of course, they kind of allude to like the fact that something is going on. They ask specifically for Geraldine, which is the other thing that I actually want to talk about. We'll get to that later. They mention her, and then Herb starts to mention something about the fact that they're all here for a particular reason, right? And he starts to like get to want to talk about that, but then Agnes cuts him off, right? I actually forgot to talk about this more in depth last week in regards to Vision, right? I hardly addressed the fact that last time we saw him, he was dead, right? And we see him alive and kicking and fine, and here singing, dancing, getting drunk off of gum. That was weird, wasn't it? So of course the question begets is how? Why? How's this happening, right? Did he come back to life? Did they resurrect him? What's the deal? My theory or my thoughts is that he's actually kind of part of this whole alternate reality, this whole illusion that's been created at the hands of Wanda, right? So my thought is that he's not real. He's just basically acting and doing things based off of her and her consciousness, what she remembers about him. Believing that, this conversation that he has with the neighbors is especially interesting, because if he's I'm I'm of the mindset that like the neighbors are actual people, right? They do have, they're not just, you know, a part of like this sitcom reality that Wanda has created. They're actually like real people, right? Which is why we got the little snaps in their consciousness with Dottie and Geraldine, right? Kind of saying that things like they don't know what they're doing here, or I know who you are, making those types of comments in the first 2 episodes. See, I was starting to think that the people in this reality are of conscious mind. They know what's going on, right? But now thinking about it, and in particular thinking about what went down in this episode here today, I'm starting to think that may not be the case, actually. So I guess it would make sense that they would have this kind of conversation with Vision. I was initially thinking that it would be kind of weird if they knew that he was kind of like not real, and yet they're still trying to like make this tell him something like this. But yeah, I don't know. There's still a lot of mystery around the characters, who they are, what their intentions are, what their motives are. And that's what I love about this show. So yeah, it was a strange conversation, but in the end, I guess I can't deduce much from it. The second main event, it has to do with Geraldine, right? The fact that she was inside the house when Wanda had gave birth to the twins. After having the kids, eventually there was this moment where she made Wanda actually started to trail off and talking about her brother, Quicksilver, or Pietro, right? There was also a nod earlier in the episode with Vision showing off his super speed, which is not normally a power that we see of Vision's. Usually Vision is, you know, his trademark thing is his being able to go through walls and stuff, right? His phasing. Not so much known for his super speed, although he does possess it. But it was shown off in particular. So I think they were kind of like foreshadowing, giving us little hints to to start thinking about Quicksilver. And then at the end of the episode, of course, he's mentioned by name. And then Geraldine goes on to make a comment about the passing of Wanda's brother, mentioning Ultron by name, saying that he was the one at cause. This kind of triggers something in Wanda, and she gets really serious, right? And I love this part right here, man, because you just see like Elizabeth Olsen, she just flips the switch like that, and she just has this like menacing aura in her eyes. She's just like dead serious, like she's about to like do something to her, like something bad, something real bad. Next thing we see, Vision walks into the home. Geraldine's no longer there, and then we get this really cool shot in which the aspect ratio it changes from whatever it is when they're in the show, right, in the sitcom, and it changes, it widens out to the widescreen with the black bars on top, with showing presumably, I guess, what is the real world, right? I'm kind of guessing that change right there and the aspect ratio is kind of meant to represent that, right? This fictional, you know, sitcom universe that was fabricated by Wanda, as opposed to the actual real world, right, going on outside. I love that effect. I love what they did there. So when we go there, we see the sign of the town, Westview, and then we see Geraldine just being like thrown out, right? As if almost as if there were like some kind of protective bubble over the town, right? And she's being like launched out. She has this red aura around her, so presumably taken to mean that Wanda is the one that, you know, kicked her out of there because of the comment that she made regarding her brother. Geraldine falls outside of the town limits, laying on the grass, and then she's surrounded by what seems to be like some kind of military personnel and helicopters and tanks and huge ass vehicles. And that's where the episode ends, and just leaving us with that further intrigue, like what's going on. So we did get another appearance of the sword symbol, this time on a necklace that Geraldine was wearing. This felt very unexpected for me. I'm assuming this is to mean that Geraldine is actually in cahoots with Sword, whether she's a part of it or she's working with them, for them. Tough to say at the moment. Now this leads me to think who else in there is actually part of Sword or working with them or for them or whatever the case may be. After the first 2 episodes, I was of the mindset that somehow Wanda had maybe imprisoned these people within this reality that she created, right? But now with today's revelation, I'm starting to think if these people actually kind of came into this reality that Wanda created, right? As a means to kind of figure out what was going on and monitor, right? That would make sense with what we've seen so far. So let's say after the events of Endgame, she was in complete distress, mourning the loss of Vision, and she kind of goes off and just builds this little bubble, right? This little, she finds, let's say Westview is just like an abandoned town in the middle of God knows where, and she goes there and she just creates this kind of like force field around it, this little bubble where she creates her utopian, her paradise, her dream play out, right? Someone caught wind of that, and eventually Sword were the ones that were sent to kind of deal with that, right? And they started sending in operatives, people, right? I want to say these people started to play along, but that's not the case. They're kind of, because we've had these moments where they start to say, where they kind of snap out of it, right? So I'm thinking maybe people were sent in there to first see what was going on, but then they got trapped, and then they got overpowered by Wanda and her powers, and their minds were altered to make them believe that that town is where they live, right? That town is where they live, and they're all neighbors, and they're all living together as a happy community. That actually makes sense considering Wanda's powers and what she's capable of doing with what we've seen in Age of Ultron, where she is able to cause these kind of hallucinations within the different heroes, giving Thor his mental images of Ragnarok, or what Ragnarok was supposed to be before they got Taika Waititi to take over. And of course, making Hulk go berserk, causing Iron Man to have to call in the Hulkbuster to take him out. The idea that Sword are the ones kind of monitoring everything that's going on inside this little universe that Wanda has created would fall in line with the end of the first episode. The person sitting at the desk monitoring the show, right? The second episode, we see the little helicopter. Maybe that's some kind of drone that they sent in there to get more eyes as to on what's going on. Yeah, who knows? So far, the pieces are slowly coming together, but there's still gaps there. There's still a mystery to be solved, right? It's not a 100% put together picture yet. I think the one thing that's sure to say though is that this universe, or this reality, is of Wanda's creation, right? But it would seem that there is someone that is looking to take advantage of this whole situation, right? Last week I mentioned the House of M event from the comics and how that plays similarities to what we're seeing in Wandavision. And today those similarities were only reinforced with the birth of the twins, Billy and Tommy. In the comics, the names given to the children are William and Thomas, thus cementing that link that we have to House of M. Now, in House of M, there is a villain that specifically sought out the birth of Wanda's children in order to empower himself. That villain, his name is Mephisto, right? And after I put up my review, I actually saw the review put out by the Screen Junkies. Go and subscribe to the Screen Junkies if you haven't. They make great content. In their review, they pointed out the fact that in the second episode, they were hitting hard on the fact that the talent show, right, was for the children, right? And they kept repeating this over and over throughout the episode. For the children, for the children, it's for the children. They pointed that out to being strange and possibly some kind of foreshadowing, right? Some kind of hint as to what is to come, and that would fall in line perfectly with Mephisto's intentions from the comic books, right? Another thing they pointed out that can have a connection to Mephisto is in that little meeting that they had, Wanda and Agnes and the rest of the housewives in Westview, with Dottie leading to organize the talent show, right? There was a line stated by Dottie where she says, "The devil is in the details." Devil, key word. Mephisto from the comics is described as an extra dimensional demon. And if we take a look at him, it's pretty clear who he's trying to represent, right? So with these little hints and with the plot points playing in line with the events of House of M from the comics, it may very well be that Mephisto is going to be our main baddie for this series. Now, as far as his exact origin or how he comes into play in the show, I feel like that's one of those things that the MCU and Feige might edit from how it's done in the comics. It goes without saying that not everything in the MCU is going word from word off of the comics, right? They've easily been making changes to certain characters, whether it's in regards to their background stories, their origins. Wanda herself is a perfect example, right? In the comics, she's known to be a mutant, whereas in the MCU, she has gained her powers. She and her brother gained her powers through experimentation done at the hands of Hydra, right? So I hopped onto the Marvel fandom site and to look up Mephisto to try to get some more information on him and what he's about. And man, he has quite the rap sheet. Seems to be one of those characters that's just always around, ageless, right? Kind of there for, like, since the start of time, and just kind of poking his head into things every now and then. So that is a bit messy. It definitely seems like that would be something that the MCU would try to better pinpoint, so it makes sense for what's actually going on in the MCU. Although, considering the fact that WandaVision leads directly into the events of Doctor Strange 2, it may not be too far-fetched to say that he, in fact, is coming from a different dimension, right? The MCU seems to be slowly introducing the idea of different dimensions, right, in the multiverse. What with the events of Spider-Man Far From Home, WandaVision now, and of course, and Doctor Strange, the next Doctor Strange movie coming out in the future, Multiverse of Madness, right? It may not be far off to say that Mephisto is the one pulling the strings here, and he won't actually be, I guess, defeated until we get to Doctor Strange 2. Who knows? Even if Mephisto is the one pulling the strings here, there's still a lot to say as far as how exactly does he learn about Wanda and the situation that's going on with her, and how he looks to take advantage of that. So there's still a lot of mystery around how he will come into play. So I'm still of the mindset as well that whatever ends up happening in WandaVision will become the catalyst for the introduction of mutants into the MCU. We see this episode that Wanda's attire also sports a large X across her body. Is this a coincidence? I mean, yeah, it probably is. I'm definitely looking way too into it at this point. Something I was thinking too, if the events of House of M do end up playing out in WandaVision, and somehow when the twins are taken away, if they do reincarnate and somehow we're introduced with Speed and Wiccan, if this show does that, and then we have the Hawkeye show that is going to introduce Kate Bishop, if somehow the Bucky and Falcon show introduces Patriot, I kind of get the feeling that maybe these TV series are going to be leading up to the Young Avengers being introduced. Maybe. That's a bit of a stretch, but I'm just putting it out there. And those are my thoughts on episode 3 of WandaVision. I'm very excited for the next episode so that we can dive deeper into this story and see how the mystery unfolds. Once again, please feel free to leave your comments. I'd love to hear about your thoughts on the show, what your theories are, what you like about it, if you don't like it, what you don't like about it, whatever it may be. Please leave your comments, like, subscribe, to make sure you don't miss the next episode next week, my review for that, as well as plenty of other content on the channel. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.